10:30 a.m. here in the Iranian capital of Tehran. Welcome to Press TV's World News. We start off our broadcast with Canada. Montreal is once again the scene of student protests. Anger is growing there over planned tuition fee increases. Thousands of students, along with their supporters, turned out in the main city of the Quebec province. There was a heavy police presence. This was the second mass rally since the talks between student groups and the Quebec government collapsed a few days ago. The talks were meant to end the months-long protests. The students are furious about the government's announced plans to raise fees by 75% over 5 years, and an emergency law that limits the right to protest has added fuel to the fire. Now the students say they're going to march every day until all their demands are met. Well, for an update on the Quebec protests, we're joined by our correspondent, Joshua Blakeney, who's joining us from Calgary. Joshua, take us through the latest protests. Why did the talks between the Quebec government and the student groups break down in the first place?
Well, it broke down in the first place because there was a kind of clash of ideas. The students in Quebec looked to the European social democracies as a model for pursuing education. They are expecting either highly affordable education at worst, or at best, free education, like 50 or more countries around the world enjoy. The Jean Charest government, which is a kind of factotum for the leadership of Prime Minister Stephen Harper, the centralized federal government, they're looking to the kind of U.S. model of, market forces leading the way, where tuition fees can often be in the tens of thousands of dollars. And so it's a kind of irreconcilable position. The students in Quebec are also, I'm sure, looking to the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, which stipulates in Article 26 that education is a right for all and should be based on merit. And they're looking to these kind of lofty ideas in the student body, and that's, of course, running up against the kind of neoliberal and neocon agenda of the government provincially in Quebec and federally in Ottawa.
This issue does seem to be deadlocked. Is there a solution looming? Will either side be willing to make some concessions to end the impasse?
Well, I think the problem is that the leadership are trying to enforce a draconian crackdown. You know, this Bill 78 was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for the students. Rather than trying to be reasonable and negotiate, the government passed a law that criminalizes protest, makes protesters have to go and almost ask permission in order to have a gathering. And so I mean, this is highly odd because actually the Quebec provincial police were exposed in 2007 as having sent agents provocateurs into political gatherings in order to cause strife and mayhem. And one of the stipulations in Bill 78 is that people can't be hooded, which is what the police did when they were exposed as having engaged in terroristic activities in 2007 in Quebec. And so the students are looking at the cant and hypocrisy of the political leadership, are viewing them as literally unbelievable. Many of the student leaders have gone from the negotiating table to the street and been rounded up and incarcerated along with 3,000 of their compadres. And they're seeing no solution to this. And actually, it's now proliferating throughout Canada. Here in the Canadian West, in Calgary and Vancouver, students are taking to the streets with pots and pans, as did students under Augusto Pinochet's Chilean dictatorship. That's where that policy of clanging pots and pans was innovated in order to oppose the mass privatization of the education system in Canada.
From Calgary, Alberta, Canada, that was Joshua Blakeney, Press TV's correspondent. Thank you for the update, Joshua. 3 days of national mourning in Nigeria. The country's worst aviation disaster in 2 decades claims the lives of 153 people on board and several others on the ground. Let's have a look.
A big bang and a huge flame. A commercial airliner crashes in Nigeria's largest city, Lagos.